Okay, so now we're going to look at just two brief alternative scenarios that, had the variables been slightly different in this case, might change our conversation a bit and have us looking at the analysis a different way as far as, okay, we do have this low interest rate on the mortgage. We would like to keep that, and obviously would like to stay in the home for the reasons we mentioned. So when we say we model this scenario strictly on cash flow and long-term growth, selling does begin to make more financial sense. But here's where good financial strategy gets a little bit more nuanced. And that's why we always recommend doing a deep dive on the finances and modeling out these different scenarios. So that, again, if you're going into negotiations or mediation, or you're talking through with if you're on good enough terms to be doing, you understand what you're giving up in return, or if you're parting with the home, what would make sense for you to receive from an equitable perspective in return. So the goal is not, we're not pro selling the house by any stretch of the imagination. I want to make that clear, but by showing this alternative scenario, the goal is to see if that is your priority. Are there other variables that could be changed in order to accomplish that goal? Here's alternative scenario one. All we changed is that we're now assuming that Jennifer has some retirement savings that she could, give, the $80,000 or so dollars instead of the cash from the home pay out and refinance. So takes the refinance option off the table because she's parting with some of her retirement in order to do so. So no need to refinance. So we're not looking at the higher interest rate on the mortgage. And you see down at the bottom here, that keeps her in the about 40% of income range. So alternative scenario two, keep the home as a short-term strategy. We mentioned she's got the child that will be graduating high school, one is middle school. So if we change one more variable, in this case, we're assuming that her income increases. So maybe there's the potential for this. She's looking at a promotion in a year or two, so she just needs a short-term solution to get her over to that next level in her career, and then this will be less of an issue. So assuming that she gets an increase of about $25,000, could also be something negotiated in the child support, or if there's a spousal support option on the table that increases that overall monthly income. And she plans to hold the home for just 2 to 3 more years until her child graduates, or until, her youngest ends up graduating. Does this make a difference? Yes. So here we're looking at an increase in, again, the income, the child support, and modeling this all out allows her to stay in that 40% range. So still stable, but it's tight, right? It's manageable. But again, if the goal is peace of mind, we're probably going to want to be looking at the alternative scenario with parting with the home. So again, this is a very weighty and heavy decision to be wrestling with. But I think the important thing is to take the time to find, your numbers and plug them all into the guide so that you can at least get a baseline for your decision-making process and understand what the trade-offs are. This house decision is rarely this is the 100% right decision or wrong decision. It's whether the numbers are going to support your goals post-divorce. So really important to model this out in multiple ways and understand options. All right. And I'll just add that we're always happy to set up some time to help you walk through your own unique situation and get your options laid out on the table. Emily, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really try and impress upon not only my clients, but even the people that I end up meeting with that don't end up hiring me is that when you're dealing with the financial piece of your divorce, and that goes above and beyond things like spousal and child support and splitting of the assets, it goes into discussing not underestimating postmarital debt and financial responsibilities and things like refinancing and the what ifs. Many a times people wait and believe that that can't be reviewed or discussed until the parties have a meeting of the mind and understanding of, where they're willing to settle. But if you're waiting until mediation or the thick of litigation to really start doing a deep dive into different scenarios and options for all of the financial pieces, you're late to the game. And so this is why it's so important that you're not relying on your attorney to really dive into your finances, right? Because your attorney's job is to litigate and to make use of the law to benefit you and to protect you. But your attorney is not there and shouldn't be there to do a deep dive into the potential repercussions of how, your finances are split. That's what a, certified domestic financial analyst is for. That's what your financial advisor is for. And so building a team ahead of time and doing those reviews and sitting down and saying, hey, this is everything, right? This is our full marital pot. If we were to split it down the middle, right? If we're hunky dory and kumbaya and husband and wife can decide, okay, we'll split this evenly. What are some of my options, right? And how do each of those options affect me long term? Doing that ahead of time gives you so much more power, and it makes your attorney's job a lot easier, right? Because then you go into negotiations knowing different options and how that's going to affect you long term. And so it's not just about knowing how much money is in the bank account. It's about knowing how that money is going to be used, what it should be saved for, and, frankly, what your financial limitations are. And so that's really one of the things that I try and impress upon people. And I've actually had people come back to me, even people that didn't end up hiring me and say to me, I wish I would have followed your advice. And I always say, well, then the best thing that you can do is the next time, you have a friend, family member, or acquaintance that's going through divorce, give them that advice, right? Don't let the lack of preparation, have long-term effects on you. And the last thing I'll say is, this year I got a Christmas card, and it was probably one of my favorite Christmas cards I'd ever gotten. It was from a real estate agent. And on the front, it had a black and white cartoon of two men sitting at a bar. And it said, I didn't get custody of the house, but I got custody of the mortgage. And I thought it was the funniest Christmas card I'd ever seen. So, these are the things, that you don't think about, right? And you think, okay, we're splitting our lives and it's going to be complicated, right? But you can uncomplicate it a little bit ahead of time if you proactively address some of these issues or potential issues, right? And if you're lucky enough that none of these factors are issues, then wonderful, right? Then you are more prepared and more capable financially moving forward as an independent than you were, before. So, I'm a huge proponent of taking back control of not only your life, but your finances and, the decisions that you're making, and surrounding yourself with people who have the requisite knowledge and experience to really outline different options for you so that you can make those decisions of what works best for you, puts you in the best position possible.
Yeah, and I'll just share, I mean, it's it's very unusual for this not to be one of the main conversations in the divorce process. I think you would, yeah, second that. For any clients, I mean, obviously it's one of the biggest assets that we're talking about from a financial perspective. But again, like we said, there is so much emotion tied up in this decision. It makes me think of a client that and kind of the strategy and why, like you said, looking at this and analyzing your options from day one is one of the smartest things you can do for yourself throughout the process, and not just on the home. We want to be looking at your full financial picture. We want to know what every piece on the chessboard is and assign a weight to it according to your priorities. And then we adjust that weight based on the reality that you will keep that. But it's because, like you said, when you get to the point where you're facing mediation and potentially become blindsided by the fact that you thought keeping the home, you were fighting for it, and you thought you should be fighting for it, or that you even could fight for it, that is such a bigger blow to not have understood from day one. So I really think it is emotional preparedness that you can do for yourself from day one, is to really look at the facts. You know, they might weigh perfectly in your favor. Yay, that's great. And then we know our path. And they may not. And then you have time to grapple with that and understand, okay, my path and my future might look a little bit different, but here's what I'm going to do to take back ownership and control over my path and my future. And sometimes having that knowledge, knowing that you are making the right sound decision and not thinking in your head, oh God, when is this going to come knocking at my door again? Where it's something I can't afford down the line in the future. But, I did have a client that her home was not truly at stake. There was enough in the marital pot. If she really wanted to keep it, she could have kept it, or she would have gotten fully, like, adequately compensated. There was really no issue of financial distress for either party, but she was in a highly contentious situation. And from day one, we chose to work on, let's mentally prepare, because her husband did use his knowledge of her love for the home against her, because he knew that it was such a weighty thing for her. So that's a consideration as well, is knowing your options helps you detach a bit emotionally so that no one can play games with you in this process. And that is incredibly empowering. Maybe even more empowering than like doing all the math your own, is knowing no one can take my piece. Like, I will find the path in the future. No one's going to use something important against me. And that comes up a lot in divorce. So I think that's one other benefit of really knowing your financial foundation from day one, is you're not going to be emotionally manipulated. Comes up a lot.
Very well put. I don't have anything more eloquent to say than what you said.
I mean, it's amazing the games people play, and we want to be ready for all of them, right? We're not gonna play games back. We're just going to show the facts and the evidence. And okay. Well, this was hopefully very informative. I truly, having worked through this decision with so many of our clients at this point, our goal is just to really help you feel empowered, help you understand your options, and feel like you are the one choosing your path forward. So hopefully, that will be helpful. And if anyone is interested, we're happy to share the guide. We will definitely be posting this conversation so folks can review it and look through it on their own time. And then always feel free to reach out to us if you'd like kind of the one-on-one assistance, if you're thinking about divorce, or feeling like the finances you just don't have a full grapple on. And Emily is always available for conversations as well, to talk through folks that might be heading down this path. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today, and we'll be back again soon.